I'd come to this strange and foreign world over 3 years ago as a scout for a phosphorus mining expedition. And here I had remained, marooned, since the nearest asteroid supply bases had been closed for lack of their necessary Earth-supplied material. Well, at least I had life. I'll take that anytime. I was thankful, too, that my alien friend, a native of this planet, was female, and that we were compatible both genetically and physically, although we were probably unable to produce offspring, at least so far. Science long ago had indicated that the Earth was probably not the birthplace of mankind, that Earth was seeded by ancestors who were common to all the galaxy. My friend's name was Serena, that being the closest English translation. Over the years here, I'd learned her language and she had learned mine. We lived together 24/7, and so I had been spared an eternity of loneliness, although it had been a very close thing, I being the only human here, and she being one of the few remaining natives of this large but doomed planetoid. This planetoid had been dying since its birth, for it had 3 suns, one of which was always shining, and so it was only a matter of time, I suppose, before all the underground springs evaporated. But these types of geological events were still measured in centuries, if not more, and there was perhaps no immediate danger in our lifetime, although life here was certainly becoming more difficult, hence the already great exodus long ago of those who could afford to leave. There was never any darkness in this land, where the sun always shone, not even inside the caves, for the phosphorus in the walls and the ground gave off a constant luminosity. This phosphorescent light had been hard to get used to at first, although Serena had no problem having been born here. She even had the natural ability to sleep with her eyes open. It was the hottest part of the week now, the time when the 2 largest of the 3 suns shone at once, there often being such an overlap as this for days at a time, and so we often had to retreat to the cool dampness of our cave, our home in this primitive world. Even when there was but 1 sun in the sky, it was still quite unpleasant to be outside, for it was always hot and bright too, for the suns, all of them, were large, and one could not easily look up into the sky near any one of them. The cave was lit by the radiant glow of the walls, no real blackness anywhere. Our lunch was boiled brown vegetation, the only cuisine available. However, when one is hungry, one is thankful for anything at all. No gourmet food here. Serena had never known darkness, and indeed, there wasn't even a word in her language which meant anything close to dark, night, or even black. However, I'd been able to convey the concept by using the absence of light as an analogy. Of course, she still had trouble grasping the idea of that which could never be. I suppose it was like asking someone to visualize a color that one had never seen. Naturally, I tried covering her eyes to simulate darkness, since she couldn't close them. But she still reported a yellowish color. And later, upon inspecting her eyes, I noted that they gave off a cat's eye type of glow, just like every darn phosphorus rock on this planet. Even the sand shone like gleaming yellow snowflakes. Ironically, this was what had brought me scouting here in the first place, the prospect of mining that rare yellow light that made fireflies glow and caused those struck matches of old to light up, for the Earth's supplies had long since run out. This ever-present light was at first psychologically disturbing, but I'd learned to live with it. First, by sleeping with a band of cloth wrapped around my eyes, although gradually I lost all track of time and just slept whenever I got tired. I also had to be careful not to come into any rough contact with the phosphorus rocks in the cave walls, lest they should burst into flame. Yes, it was a rather precarious existence, though a livable one. But alas, I could never go home again, for the Earth had been destroyed by a giant comet, one of the Perseids. the shower whose many precursions had given us the wonderful meteor shows of that name. I turned to Serena and spoke to her about it, having been unable to deal with it until now, and also because she had only recently gained the scientific knowledge to be able to understand solar system concepts. I was one of the lucky ones, Serena, for I was already out in space, had just recently launched, in fact, when the disaster hit my home planet, Earth. You cannot know the shudder that went through me when I realized that all that I had loved was gone, that all that it was or could be, all that had formed me, given rise to me, was gone forever. My Earth was one of the most priceless work of art that the universe had ever known. This rock on which we now live is not even Earth's pale shadow. At least we do have pale shadows on your planet, though they are hardly noticeable. At first, when I saw Earth's fireball, I thought that I had seen a shooting star. But then, noting the origin and size of the spectacular explosion, I was overcome by a horrid feeling, one that was chill and sickly like any I'd never known, that it was indeed that the Earth had left us. I could do nothing but continue on, for the Earth had no equal in our solar system. Oh, we had long ago searched the entire galaxy in vain for such a paradise, but the Earth had remained unmatched. Serena thought for a while, having only recently grasped the idea of a universe filled with worlds, she never even having seen stars in this land in which night had never fallen. But again, I was fortunate that she had an open and intellectual mind. So during our recent studies, I had been able to take her thoughts and her mind across many centuries of learning and knowledge, sequentially educating her step by step, using small and primitive learning blocks until reaching some rather complex theories. She was now able to understand such concepts as solar systems, space travel, physics, biology, and many other unseen wonders like oceans, rivers, and lakes, which, though quite impossible on her planetoid, were at least conceivable to her, since she had often seen water bubbling up from the hot springs, which, by the way, were apparently the limited and unrenewable source of both water and oxygen on this near planet. Finally she spoke, after allowing the cloud of sadness to pass from my brow, for she was emotionally very capable.
Patrick, you lost everything that day. You are a man without a world. How many people died? How many survived?
Trillions died. That is a number you don't have here, but take your deca and multiply it by itself for deca number of times, and you will be close to knowing what a trillion is. No one on the ground survived.
A trillion is like the number of grains of sand in the desert outside our door,
she answered. Yes, Serena, I might have said that in the first place, but I suppose I've been too much of a scientist lately. As for how many survived, I'm sure that's only in the thousands, perhaps eventually only in the hundreds, since many Earth outposts were contained within domes on uninhabitable moons and asteroids, and were quite dependent on the Earth in the long run for their survival.
I understand more and more every day,
she answered, for she was now quite proud and even happy with all the ongoing revelations.
When you first fell from the sky, I thought you a god, but now that you explain everything, I see that it all makes sense, and what once seemed magical and clever to me is now all laid bare before my eyes as something entirely reasonable.
She spoke mostly in English now, there not being enough words in her native tongue to suffice. But of course, when discussing particulars known only to her world, we had to use her language, which, for example, had hundreds of different words for all the various kinds of light and heat, although none for weather, since it never rained or even got cold. There were certainly no words for night, blackness, stars, or for other worlds. She continued,
We have been together several years now, and still I awake each morning eager to learn of new mysteries. Is there no end to knowledge?
Oh, I replied, where I come from, there is truly no end. But one cannot possibly know everything. so one ends up finding out things only as they are required. Oh, the wonders I could have showed you on Earth. The colors, the mountains, the forests, the meadows, the scents, the tastes, the inventions. I'm sorry that I don't have any books with me or even something so amazing as a mirror to show. A mirror? Yes, you can see yourself in it. See myself? See another me? I cannot. Yes, it's like a reflection in the water. Oh, I forgot, there is no standing water here, and damn, I don't even have a shiny belt buckle to use to show you the effect, and all the glass in my spaceship is non-reflective. Anyway, yes, you could see yourself just as others see you. From the outside of me, I sort of understand, but I cannot quite imagine. When mirrors first appeared on Earth in the form of polished metal, people thought them magical. And even in modern times, one could watch with wonder the amazement of babies or small kittens, who, though they both quickly got used to it, thought first that they'd seen another of their species. Kittens? Cat? Small furry animals. Domesticated, meaning tame or not wild. Animals? Wild? They are other forms of life, some with 4 legs, I explained, ever so patiently, for there were no animals on her planet. We had animals in the old days, she said. There are drawings on some of the cave walls of such as you speak. They are all gone now, like your Earth. You seem so sad when you speak of Earth. It must have been wonderful. What do you miss the most? What I miss the most is not the darkness, for I can simulate that here when I sleep, and not love, for I surely have that now with you, and not the cold, for I never liked it, nor life, for I am happy to have it here, if nothing more. But what I miss most, if I had to say some particular thing, is the color green. For green is a color which does not seem to exist here, the hue that is the soothing and lush, life-giving, restful green of Earth. It was said to be the sanest color, evoking serenity, as in your name. What is the color green? She inquired. I know the blue sky, the golden suns, the tan rocks, the brown leaves and the brown vegetation, the pink of your hidden parts, the red of our blood and of your hair, the orange flashes of fire, the darker brown of trees that almost suggests the strange black color that you speak of, the gray shadows, and the yellow of phosphorus. But I have never known there to be a color called green. What is green? I wish I could show you, Serena, but there is no green on your planet, not even a tint or a shade of it. On Earth, the leaves and the vegetation are mostly green, but here the same are all born brown, even in the shadows of caves. Some people on Earth have green eyes even, but alas, mine are brown, and there is no other body part which is green. Although nothing much else on Earth is green but the vegetation, green has, even more than the blue of sky and ocean, come to be regarded as the sweetest color on Earth, for it represents all that is living and supportive of life. It is very calming and serene like you, and therefore many people use it as the color of their carpeting. Many of the other colors have drawbacks or more specific uses. Red, for example, means danger, blood, but having red tablecloths in eating places makes people hungrier, and so they order more food. Pink is debilitating, and so many of the game-playing sports teams have painted the visitors' locker rooms in that hue. Blue is energizing, and is often used in working places. Yellow is bright and cheerful, the sun's color, and is often used in cooking rooms called kitchens, although yellow can also mean caution, danger even, especially with black, as on stinging insects called bees. Purple is used for mourning death, or for the regal kings and queens, the rulers. Our brown, like all around here, is actually the most popular non-primary color, and is not therefore even in the spectrum, for it is made up of red and yellow, orange and black. But what is green like? If you can't tell me what it is, then maybe you can say what it is like. Or perhaps you can say what it is not like. Either way, that's hard to say. For green is a unitary hue and also primary. And so being means that there is nothing like it, no overlap. Although if I had to say so, I think green is more like blue than any other color. But I only say that because green is a cool and soothing color like blue, and not a fiery color like red, orange, or yellow. But I should tell you that blue is certainly not green, nor is green blue. If I myself had not known green, then I doubt I could have conceived of its existence. That is fine philosophy, she said, but it does not tell me what the color green. Have you any green clothes? I do, or I did, but they're not with me. Not even the slightest thread, for I've already examined all my clothes and spacesuits. It's not that I don't like to wear the color green, although it is seldom worn on Earth except on St. Patrick's Day. I guess there was already so much green on Earth that we all came to prefer more of a contrast. And my spaceship, it's all metallic skin and fiber optic conduit. There's no green anywhere in it or on it. Patrick, I really wish that I could know green. Too bad there are no rainbows here or waterfalls. Rainbows? Caused by water vapor falling from the sky called rain or fog or moisture that divides white light into the colors that join to form it. Waterfalls? Falling water? There are none to be found here. The rivers dried up long ago, leaving only those ruts in the ground that I sometimes call canals. I really miss green, though. It is somehow a part of me. But let's not give up on it so easily, Serena. We ventured outside the cave to begin a search for green, there being only one sun up now, although it was still a scorching 120 degrees outside. We lifted some rocks, finding various insects thereunder, but they were either brown, gray, drab, or colorless. I next peeled back some bark from a tree, hoping for some inner tint of mossy green, but it was only tan. I pulled up a plant and tore open a leaf, but had no luck with that either. Evidently, chlorophyll played no role on this planet. Next, we cracked open a rock, but found not the fabled color. This planet was indeed a greenless world. I guess green is not necessary for life here, she said. I guess not. This reminds me of the time I read a book which did not use the letter E, the most frequent letter in our alphabet. I didn't even notice it at first, although I had a vague feeling that something wasn't quite right. Even though I was now very tan, I didn't dare stay out in the sun too long, so we gave up our green search for today and headed back to the cave. I wish I had some ice, I said. Ice? Solid water, hard as a rock, not so refreshingly cold. Make me some ice, Patrick. That I can never do in this climate. It never gets cold enough. What is cold? It's hard to explain if you've never felt it, but it's sort of like how the underside of a rock does not burn your hand since it's cooler than the top. Only cold means much, much more cooler. I know not this thing called cold, she replied. I looked fondly at Serena as we walked back to our eternal cave. Her skin was a very deep bronze all over, for she always went naked. She had blonde hair, but no other body hair, since her race had never known cold, I guess. Her hands and feet were wide and leathery, with 6 toes and 6 long, slender fingers. She had no real eyelids to speak of, or eyebrows, but otherwise had all the other humanoid features and anatomy. She was a human first cousin, perhaps. She was completely vegetarian by necessity. She had not a violent thought in her head, having, I suppose, no natural enemies to fear. For dinner we gathered some brown leaves, which evidently contained all the nutrients that we needed, since we were still healthy, and then retired for the day. What else do you miss from your Earth? She asked as we lay together. Well, at night, for this is night to me now, I miss the stars, those suns of other worlds that I told you about, the stars that shine across the blackness of space, for they are far away and thus appear very small. You mean that the space between the stars is black? At least I think I know what black might be. And the suns are not bright and blinding since they are so far away. As I fell asleep in her embrace, I had some dreams of Earth. At least I could still go there in my sleep. Oh, how often had I taken Earth for granted. Not appreciated it when it was there. I even left it time after time to go off into the cold and colorless void. I tried to forget it, but I could not. Well, at least I was alive in this strange sort of Eden. Anyway, life was life, and more I realized that I didn't really need anything fancy from life, except love, of course. Yes, love was enough. And it is reason for all that we do. Well, my spacecraft was still in working order, but was there any place out there left for me to go? Was there any life still out there? Or had it all withered away by now for lack of support? There were plenty of borderline Class K planetoids around like this one, but unfortunately, none of them were anything like Earth. For a long ways in every direction. Perhaps I could head in some chance direction, running out of fuel, of course, but coast at a high speed for years. No, it was too risky. My ship was only of the intersolar type and was not meant for distant star travel. I could, though, return to the main mining base, an artificial world built on an asteroid, but no good, for it too was a world with an uncertain future, a world even more sterile than Serena's planet. No, my life was here now. Anyway, all the greener worlds had nasty diseases and organisms against which I could never be immunized. Yet another of those endless, overly tropical days dawned, but only in my mind, for the sun never rose or set without another sun already in the sky before it. No dawn, no dusk, no half-light. I had brown leaves for breakfast again. Talk about the simple life. I was becoming a modern-day Thoreau. Tell me again about the mysterious colors of black and green, she requested. Black is easier to tell of, so let's start with it, I answered. Black is the absence of all color, and so it is the opposite of white, which amazingly is the sum of all colors, although white reveals not a one of them except through a prism. Since your life is based on phosphorus, you see a dim yellow even as a background color when you shield your eyes. But when I close my eyes, I see a black background. I can't think what would be there if not for the yellow glow. I'm afraid I'm not doing a good job of explaining. Try harder, she encouraged. Then it hit me. What a fool I've been, I said. I have an old-fashioned ink pen somewhere in my spaceship, one that writes in black on something old called paper. At once I retrieved it, and the pen still worked as I ran it along my skin. That is the color of night, my dear. This is black. See how dark it is? I see now, she said. It is as I thought, being the limit reached by the removal of all light, the color hinted at by shade and shadow. The color just past brown, at least for me. A lack of color, really, like you said, but I still do not understand what is green. Do you have any green ink? No, people don't usually write with green ink. Red ink, yes. I quickly ran outside and went through my spaceship with a fine-toothed comb. The ship was all white and metal gray. There was not a shade of green to be found anywhere on it or in it. The seats were simulated leather, and all the electronic readouts were orange on blue. All the supply kits were yellow, with the insignia of the mining company. I had trouble even finding anything blue on the ship. We're a long way from Ireland, I said, exasperated. Ireland? It's a country on Earth, known for its 40 shades of green. I wish that I could see Ireland, Patrick. None will ever see it again except in memory, although I came from there. Can you not make me the color green somehow? The question struck me dumb, for it was really a very good question as asked. Wait a minute, I said. Green is made from mixing blue and yellow. But unfortunately, I don't have any paints or such mixing materials. Although I do have a bluish-black pen, but of course not a yellow one, for who would write with yellow ink? Worse than writing with green, she added, smiling, catching on. Yes, writing with yellow ink is silly, but yet there must be some way to produce green. Serena, can you logically mix blue and yellow in your mind and then imagine the result? No, forget it, that doesn't make much sense. For yellow and blue give no hint of the resultant green, like, say, the way yellow and red readily hint of the resultant orange. We sat silently for a while, stumped, the heat growing stronger all the while. She looked down at the ground, disappointed. I too looked glum for a time. Neither of us spoke. We saw nothing but yellow phosphorus and the yellow sand gleaming even more golden in the light of the twin suns. There was yellow everywhere we looked. Hot, warm, glowing yellow and more yellow until it had fully saturated the eyes and the mind. Then I noted a flash of inspiration on her face. She smiled and suddenly looked straight up into the bright blue sky, as none had ever dared to, then covered her eyes and screamed with delight. "I see green, Patrick!" she cried. "I see it! It's green!" I quickly did the same as she, and yes, the mixing of the blue sky with the yellow afterimage of the phosphorus ground had produced a clear and vivid green. She had at last beheld the verdant color of earth.